So we've been wanting to do this for a while, okay? I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel here, but I think that Victoria and I were talking the other day, and I just feel like we got a lot of
We have a lot of stories.
And there's a lot of things in the background that we just, we've gone through or we just haven't been able to fully disclose because, like, let's face it, I don't want to make a full YouTube video on the drama between, like, my neighbor and I.
Yeah.
Or something. So we wanted to do something where it's like podcast, if you will, where you guys can sit and listen or watch, have it in the background, and Victoria and I or whomever we have guest, you know, if I have a friend in town or whatever you name it, just kind of sit here and talk. So, which I can do super well.
I was like, when I think about this, I think about our fireside chats, and like we have such good conversations. I'm like, oh, I wish some people could listen to some of these.
You might have to one episode or something. I might have to break out like a glass of wine or something and really get the words flowing.
Oh no!
But we wanted to say hello and thank you for tuning into the first episode of the ShanksCast. Nothing particular for this episode, I suppose. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We just want to sit here and chat and disclose a little bit more of some of the deeper aspects of our life, but also just sit here and chat because we don't really chat.
We don't really talk that much anymore. I mean, you and I do.
Yeah, but it's all about cars, and
Yeah.
like it'll still be about some of the cars, but I don't know. There's definitely a lot of things that I would love to disclose about just some of the dramas and some of the things that we've had
Behind the scenes,
and even in our personal lives a little bit. You know, even if it's at some point we talk about like marriage advice or just our marriage. There's a lot of things that we have insight to, but I'm limited to 30 seconds to a minute for like daily advice at the end of the videos, and so it's like
your daily advice is like 3 minutes. You got good advice though.
I'm a little jittery. I haven't eaten anything today, except actually that's not true. I had a little ham roll up this morning, but
You didn't buy me one?
two energy drinks. You were gone.
I really was expecting to come home to some
Babe,
bakery.
we had
an appointment, an early appointment.
Yeah, well, we can tell them. No, probably no.
Well, if this is going out next week, no.
Never mind. Secrets are fun. I think something that I haven't really disclosed is the path that I've had. I feel like my lips are dry right now.
My lips have been dry for like 2 months.
For the record, guys, I have some weird.
Oh yeah. How many messages have you gotten about your lips?
I have done YouTube for 14 years, and I have gotten messages about this for 14 years, comments about this. I have some weird like skin condition on my lips where they're not dry, but they look like they're dry, and they look like they're always cracking. But also, I have Tourette's, and so one of my tics is to do this, and I'm constantly tearing my lip open. So if you could all just shut up.
The number of pieces of chapstick we've had sent to our P.O. box.
Yeah. Well, and I use like medical grade stuff, like the stuff
You
that I
use
use.
good stuff.
People just don't get it. Yeah, I feel like my lips are getting a little chapped right now, but like that's why they're always cut, and people just don't get that.
Yeah. It's funny. Gabby has hers isn't cut, but she's got a little
noticed.
divot.
So I'm sure that answer that will never solve the constant questions, but I guess.
Have you tried chapstick?
Yeah, like dude, you have no idea. I have chapstick that is worth more than a year's worth of supply of chapstick for most people.
Yeah. Well, so okay, let's way jump back. So you started YouTube how long ago? Like 14 years ago?
I mean, technically 14 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we'll backtrack. I mean, you just want to backtrack kind of like what we talked about with Nate, I guess.
A little bit. We'll do high level.
Yeah, so I started YouTube. If you're new to the channel, I started YouTube 14 years ago.
Something
2010.
like
I was in high school, so like really I technically have probably been doing it for like 10 years.
Professionally.
Really going at it, but like even still, been doing it a long time. And started with well, at first I just wanted to see car content because nobody really made car content. Like I remember when I was in high school, I would always watch just random stuff on YouTube. It was like people would do like a 30-second flyby of their exhaust or something. It was like there's nobody making long-form content of car stuff. And so I started doing that naturally. I bought a GoPro 720p. I still can't believe that was a big deal back in the day.
That was a big deal.
The first gen it was $480, or if you paid $100 more, you get the HD version.
That was 720p.
It was 720p. This is before I worked at Best Buy, so I didn't get any discounts. So that was a lot of money for me in high school. OCD. I got all these little frillies on this black table. I also have OCD, guys. I have OCD big time. I pretty much just strapped a GoPro to the top of my TC. I made a couple videos before that, I guess, like with the XB, some exhaust clips.
Yeah.
I would use the GoPro for a lot of miscellaneous things, but like the idea for me was I wanted to make the content that I wanted to see. And so I started doing a bunch of random stuff. It wasn't necessarily good content by any means.
Well, early YouTube had like, it was the Wild West. There was no trends.
It was
no
a shot in
nothing.
the dark. There's no YouTubers. I mean, like, this is before. I honestly don't like to coin that I'm like the first automotive YouTuber, because like there's no way to prove that really.
Yeah.
But like, there was nobody making any automotive. There was
Yeah.
like was it Smosh and stuff. Like there was Smosh and all the
even know
weird
who that
stuff.
is.
Like it was back in the day.
Well, and I think that's why in high school and stuff, when you would say like, I think this could be a career, everybody's like, you're not going to make a living off of YouTube. Like, what the heck?
Nobody thought.
Yeah, nobody thought that was a thing.
Everybody rolled their eyes. And honestly, it was hard to believe personally too. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think that I was going to make a living off of it. And to be honest, quite frankly, I still barely think that it's going to be a viable thing for forever. But it's like, I'm still
Yeah.
just doing it.
But anyway,
It's
so
worked.
you've modified cars. That's kind of how you.
So I've always loved cars, and we'll talk. I guess we could probably talk about what got me into cars in another episode or something. But yeah, I just sort of like, I don't want to say pioneered, but I just started making content. And then so I met TJ in like 2014. We started doing the express rallies together. He and I became really good friends, and he coined. He actually, like, I think he did a lot of stuff because he was so into like Casey Neistat that he kind of brought the vlogging aspect to it.
Yeah, definitely.
But then, and that sort of revolutionized it for me, and that gave me a different perspective on how to view it. And I was like, okay, I can use my personality plus the cars to make long-form content and tell a story, which I think, Long story short, graduated from college. I have a bachelor's in finance. Never ended up using it at all, technically.
I mean, you own 2 companies, so.
Technically, I have not gotten a finance job, but I've got that. When I graduated college, by the way, we got married a month later. Or 2 months later.
A month and a half, yeah.
I could not afford this small apartment. There's a 1-bedroom, 1-car garage.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, like, my monthly income was half of what the rent costed.
Yeah.
And you had just quit your job.
Yeah.
Because
I had
she
some good
graduated
savings
before me.
that we were able to kind of make ends meet, but.
Yeah, we literally were dependent on a little bit of 6 months of work savings, and then literally praying that it would just work out. And thankfully it did. So
can we set the record straight? And this has been bugging me for years. That you have not received anything from parents. None of this is paid for by parents.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just natural for people to assume that you have it better than them.
Yeah.
When you're doing well.
They try to find excuses.
And so, but like, the only thing my dad was insanely, and I'm going to be the same way, like for our girls, I'm going to buy them their first cars.
Oh yeah, my parents
going to take care of them until they're out of the house, and which I think most parents
car parts
should.
And all that.
But yeah, no, like my dad never paid for anything except for like school and like living.
Yeah.
And then he bought my Subaru. And I think a lot of people, like, they'll even go as far as like to say that, like, well, you never would have started if it wasn't for your Subaru. It's like, my Subaru, like, nothing happened with my channel until my Subaru was gone, technically.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. That is a really common question about, maybe we could talk about finances or money or something.
I had that.
That's a good, a lot of people, it's frustrating because when you're self-made, it is hard to not want to take that, that success. It's like when people look at you and they're like, no, you didn't do this, you must have had it easy.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you have no idea.
I was like, y'all have
like
no
the leaps
idea.
of faith that we've had to do to make this work.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've seen our bank accounts go to zero. We've seen all kinds of stuff.
We've lived in the red zone, like
when we were in California, we heard gunshots and
there's a police chase in our backyard.
Police chases quite often.
I mean, we lived in like one of the most ghetto
but it was
places.
Expensive. I'm not going to get into that, but it was expensive.
But yeah, we couldn't afford to live in the places where TJ was living in at the time.
Yeah.
So we had to live in to make it even kind of work, we had to use his garage that he was paying for that we could absolutely not even come close to affording half of what that was.
Yeah.
Super ghetto apartment, was not nice at all. And it was, we were like gunshots often. It was wild. We definitely lived in a bad part of town, and it was interesting though. It built a lot of character. And none of this came easy, and I think that's something I've never really because really at the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah.
You can say it a million times, and somebody's still gonna hate.
Yeah.
Or somebody's still gonna find a reason
to
to say something stupid, and so it's not worth the energy, I guess, to sit there. But yeah, no, I have not gotten any money from my family to do any of this. It's hard to hear that, but it is what it is. So, well, let's talk a little bit we'll continue with my story, I guess the path that we've taken in the past year, and we'll close with that for the first episode. But so we've obviously moved around several times. We moved back to Texas. I'd like to talk about the reason we moved back to Texas, because that was a lot of it really was not as dramatic as people thought, but there was a little bit of drama
there was
too.
so much drama that people thought.
There was, but it was really annoying, and we had to sort of avoid people and places and things for a long time. But we moved back, we got our apartment again, then thank God we were able to afford a house at 23, so we got our first house.
Yeah.
Outgrew that pretty quickly. Literally, HOA was mad at us for having stuff outside. So it was okay, well, we got to move somewhere where it's...
I think our fence was stained the wrong color. And we got a citation.
Yeah, we got so much stuff. I hate HOAs, guys. Never live in a place where, if you have the option, don't live where an HOA is.
So for a while, you really focused on just modifying cars. You didn't really drive that much. You tried to here and there.
So I was gonna kind of get that point, but I was gonna talk about just moving here first, because we got to the point to where we were outgrowing the shop, but it was too expensive to rent a space. Mm-hmm. So, and I'd like to talk about finances at some point too, because the reason we bought this house was it was cheaper to pay the mortgage and build the shop than it was
to rent a place.
To just rent a smaller shop than what we built.
Yeah.
So we built this, but yeah, I'll go back. A lot of people saw me drift in 2017, I guess, 2018,
when
2019.
We were Willow. Yeah.
So I got into it because it was the thing to do on YouTube. I mean, there's always been metas, Copart, drifting, abandoned vehicles, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, I forget about the Supra. Oh my God, we got to make a podcast about that.
We might get shadow banned.
That might happen again. Still haven't recovered, by the way, from that. But that's another story. So I started driving because it was the meta. Everybody was building drift cars, and that was just kind of the problem, I think. And I think that's kind of the root issue where it was for me, is I focused a lot more on the build.
Yeah.
I always wanted to drive. I loved driving.
Get seat time, Evan. Get seat time.
Yeah, no, I've always truly dreamt of being a race car driver. I grew up racing. It was
in our vows.
I grew up racing. It's not out of the norm for me to compete, to drive a bunch. But for some reason, so I don't know how much I want to get into this. Can we talk about the whole thing?
Yeah, let's go.
We might as well. Okay. It's going to be a long story, so strap in. If you got a long drive, you'll listen to my soothing voice for a little while.
Hey, I like your voice.
So I obviously always loved to drive, but I always wanted to. But something happened around after. So it was after college, I would say, is when it really started. I've always had anxiety, but it was not a life-altering anxiety. And I do want to clarify that there's many different types of anxieties.
Definitely.
Mine is extravagant. I don't mean to belittle any other types or anything, but mine is extravagant. My brain,
yours truly is a chemical balance.
It is so bad that I feel not. I don't only my brain tricks me into thinking that I'm dying. Mm-hmm. It's the worst case scenario. I would rather off myself than go through it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it started, I would say, really after college. I would get anxiety in random situations. But I think it was in California.
Yep.
The first time it really happened.
With
and
Miata.
It was really silly because it was the first day. It all really stemmed from the doctor giving me the wrong type of medication.
Yep.
Because I wanted to deal with it. Everybody was just getting Xanax prescribed to them. So I was like, I don't get something so I can fly better, whatever. Couldn't fly, couldn't drive, whatever. So I get into doing the video was... We get kicked out of autocross because my Miata's too loud. It was that day.
Yep.
That was the day that my anxiety started. And I didn't obviously show any of this.
That was this severe.
No, the severity of it was, it started to be intense from that day. And I don't know what it was, but I was just sitting. I was on grid. I was on the pad, or no, I was on the grid, and I was just waiting my turn. And like I felt like my helmet was choking me, so I undid my helmet. And I'm not kidding. I started I'm about to throw up. I'm about to throw up. My heart rate went through the roof. My blood pressure was through the roof. I mean, it was like I was probably dangerous. Like honestly, the things that was going on in my body is probably dangerous for the long term. But I remember getting out of my car and leaning over like I was going to throw. I threw my helmet off.
Yeah.
I was like,
when I'm watching this, I'm like, what is going on?
Dude, it was crazy. And it was honestly one of the scariest moments of my life because you can't control it.
Yeah.
It's an out of body experience. Somebody else is taking the controller. It's like Xbox, and you're no longer in control. And it's scary. It's frightening. And so it started then. And, because what do they call it? The trigger. My trigger was being in a
driving,
car now.
yeah, with a helmet.
Because my first anxiety, my true anxiety attack, was in a car, in a race car.
I would say it was a panic attack.
It was true panic attack, like happened in a car. And so every time after that, until we got it fixed or diagnosed,
which was like 4 years.
4 years. So I moved on anyways. Finished building my drift car because that was still the thing. I had my SC300 at the time, and I wanted to finish building it because I had just worked on it for so long. Finished the SC.
Yep.
Finally took it out, the drifted for the first time. And it was weird because it really kind of it was intermittent. It did happen intermittently because there were some days where it would still be there, but it wouldn't force me out of the car and throw up. It got worse as time went on though. It was like I would get a panic attack, literally a full-blown panic attack the night before, thinking about the fact that I was going to the track. So I remember sitting,
it was
before we went to Willow Springs.
Yeah. If you thought about it, it got to a point where if you thought about it, it's like all bets are off.
My first or second track day in the SC, literally I remember sitting, I was playing Xbox with my friends in my living room in California. I started thinking about the fact that I was going to be going to Willow Springs the next morning. Instant panic attack, like full-blown panic attack, couldn't breathe. And I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. And that
still went, and I still had anxiety the whole day. And that was my problem too. I want to talk about this. A lot of the reasons why I looked so bad at driving was because my brain wasn't functioning at all.
You couldn't process.
The whole day, I was fighting breathing. I was making sure my heart rate didn't go so high that it put me into the hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fighting a war.
Yeah.
Every single time I was involved in being in a driver's seat. And it hurt so much because everybody gave me such a hard time for being a bad driver, which obviously the driving I was doing was bad.
Yeah.
But I knew I wasn't a bad driver, and I knew it wasn't my fault. And it was so hard to read because, I mean, people were insanely rude.
People are mean.
People were insanely rude about how, the driving. And it was just bad. And it got to the point where it was so bad it made me insecure. And so I had to step back from driving completely. And so that's when I started just gravitating towards builds.
Yeah.
And that's also a weird time because my YouTube channel started to grow a ton because I was building really cool cars. But then people started getting upset because I wasn't driving them. So I was like, okay, what do you guys want? Do you guys want me to drive? Because I suck at driving right now because my anxiety is so bad. Or do you want me to build cool cars? And so...
When I was going to say even more so on the severity of the anxiety, it's like there was a point where you couldn't fly anymore. When we went home for Christmas from California to Dallas, literally as we're calling the Uber, your panic attacks.
Yeah.
So that then took out any type of collaboration with people.
Yeah.
You literally stopped traveling for 3 or 4 years, and then COVID hit and all that kind of stuff.
This was a big reason why we built such a big shop too, because I was like, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So I might as well give myself as much to do as possible here.
Yeah, yeah. And then even to the point where going to fan meets and stuff.
Couldn't do freaking... Dude, yeah. I couldn't go to car meets.
He literally would have a panic attack going to car meets or getting in the car, and then we would have to...
we would turn around and go back inside.
Yeah.
It was tough. So
I forget all about all this until
it's hard. Yeah. I honestly, I think I purposefully blocked it out of my mind, but it was genuinely, definitely, it was the hardest time of my life, I think.
Yeah.
which is crazy to think because it was the most successful I had ever been. Money was flowing in.
Yeah.
I had more money than I knew what to do with.
But life was hard.
But life was just tough. I couldn't do anything with any of the money I was making. And I was just scared all the time. I was locked at home. I couldn't even also, like, it was just any drive over an hour. I couldn't do.
We couldn't go on road trips.
Because I was just scared to have my anxiety was so bad that I was getting a panic attack thinking about the possibility of having a panic attack because they were just that big of a deal to me.
I guess to way jump ahead, that's kind of how you got known for having all these builds, just connecting all the dots for people. If you're not traveling and if you're not racing, and it's like, okay, well, I do have all this money,
that's
so
why I have
buy another car.
I don't have anything to do with it,
Yeah.
I have no budget going towards driving, so it's like, I have $7,000 to spend. Why not do that and make a quick little video series and not finish the car maybe, but it's like, well, let's keep building hype because I got nothing else to do.
Yeah, which that'll be a whole nother topic, I think, of not finishing cars.
I think so.
Do you want to talk, so we've beat the horse on what was wrong, how did it get better?
So we finally, you found what?
That I had to bribe you.
Yeah, you did. So she found this doctor, and this is no plug or anything, but I will.
It's actually,
I will thank them because it was the best process I've ever had, and it is. I recommend it.
I will give it a plug because 5-3 donates to their nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, there you go.
Anyway.
But it's called Amen Clinics. It's Dr. Amen out of California or something.
Yeah, out of LA.
Huge, big brain guy.
Brilliant.
Brain guy. Super smart, but he studies the brain, and his biggest thing was if you break your bone, or what was it?
If you have a heart problem, the cardiologist does an EEG or whatever it might be, and if you break your arm, you go get an X-ray. And what his whole thing was, and kind of how I present it to you was, if you have something going on in your brain and something's broken, you need to look at the brain. Mm-hmm. And that ended up being a life changer.
Brain scan. Yeah. So a big problem in the anxiety world is pharmaceutical companies I'm not even going to get into this, but it's such a cash grab, and it's so sad because I got so tired of feeling like a puppet. I felt like a string puppet because people were just throwing a random medication at me. They're like, well, try this for a month.
Which is what made it worse.
How many more times do I need to go 30 days making my anxiety worse for myself?
Yeah.
Until this is over.
Yeah.
And it's like, I contemplated not living anymore many times because it was just like, I feel like a puppet on a string. Mm-hmm. I have no control over my life. Whatever. So
Helpless.
So we got...
No. So I
didn't want to do it because I was skeptical.
Like you just said, you were over it.
I was like, there's no fix for me. There's no way this can be fixed.
So what did I bribe you with?
She told me I could build a $3,000 PC if I go get my brain scans done. That was it, right?
Yeah. I was like, if you go do this, because it was ruining so much.
Yeah. There was a lot. To be honest, like, this is in depth, but like, I was turning to alcohol. Like, I had to drink a lot to make sure, like, at the end of every single day, I was drinking a lot of alcohol because, my brain was so hurt, traumatized, whatever. That's the only thing I could turn to relax it.
Yeah.
Then that led to always being hungover every morning, and so I was never in the mood to work. I was gaining a ton of weight, so people were noticing that. I finally was just like, screw it, tired of this. I'll take the deal from you. And then I was like, whatever. I also have major claustrophobia.
Yeah.
And anxiety does not work well with that. And so these brain scans, your head is in a teeny, tiny little compartment with this thing for 30 minutes.
Yeah. And
it's going around really slowly. And I remember just having the worst time. You have to go back. You have to do it twice. Mm-hmm. They inject you with some stuff. They make your brain active.
It's like a contrast
active
scan.
And then there's an inactive one. And it was wild. Like, the first call we had back for the doctor was the most, like, bone-chilling, just also at the same time alleviating call I've ever gotten, because the doctor was like, Evan, your brain is effed up.
Yeah. And what's crazy is when we said this is the first medication you tried, or these are the meds that you had tried initially, she was like, well, of course those won't work with like looking at your brain. Like that was the exact
So to
opposite
break it
thing.
down simply, you're like, there's SSRI, there's SNRI, there's multiple types of medications, and certain things do certain things for certain parts of your brain. The medications I was being given were for very typical anxiety to shut down the generic part of your brain that usually will go off if you have like a very generalized anxiety.
Probably something
disorder.
that would work for me.
Right. My anxiety was not that type of anxiety. It was
Yeah.
a very serious chemical imbalance. A different part of my brain was going off. And so
Yeah.
it's cool because they were able to look at my brain and say, look at this.
They pinpointed.
You have trauma here, probably from childhood or something.
Yeah.
So they pinpointed that I have trauma in my brain, which
Yeah.
is crazy. Like that's PTSD. So I was immediately diagnosed with PTSD,
Uh-huh.
OCD, like obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
Actually diagnosed. Stop falsely diagnosing yourselves with that, guys. It's annoying. Just because you're type A does not mean like a little bit of dust or.
I know. I feel like I could be like, oh, I'm OCD, and then I met you.
Clue, dude.
And I was like, oh no, I
It's
just
a
like to
legit
control
problem,
things.
okay? So, but I was diagnosed with that, and then it was just obviously anxiety. But they were
Yeah.
able to say like, okay, we see that your anxiety is being fired off with this part of your brain. So
Yeah.
this is the medication. This is the type of medication that's going to work. So we're going to try it. Long story short is the first medication they offered me worked.
Yeah.
Haven't tried anything
We
since.
have to. Yep.
And I'm off Xanax. I'm off Klonopin. Like I had a bunch of other anxieties.
You're not
anxiety
drinking
meds.
as much
I'm not
anymore?
drinking like nearly as much. Like
It's
some
celebratory
wine
now.
and stuff every now and then. Like I'm whatever, dude. But it was a life changer. Even still, I had such a high guard up
Yeah.
from it in the past that it took me another 2 years after that was done, or a year and a half or so, to even try and phase myself back into attempting to drive. I think the thing that really set me back in the driver's seat was the Hyundai event that we went to.
That was our first flight?
That was my first flight. Which I was so nervous because, man, especially when you're in a fuselage in the air,
You can't
you're
leave.
you're helpless. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the worst place to have a panic attack. I mean, you're already confined. You're close to people, way
Yeah.
closer than anybody should want to be
Right.
to people. But it worked out. It was fantastic. It was amazing, actually. And then I drove for Hyundai a few days on the track, and great time. It was still like it was a small battle, just because like I knew the feelings were there, but like the medication I was taking sort of gave me a ceiling to where I wasn't having to deal with like a full-blown panic attack. And so
Yeah.
I had to warm myself back up to just my body, my brain allowing me to be comfortable with being in the driver's seat. So we did that. And then I started, because drag racing, it's quick and it's over. I started getting into that. I'm not really passionate about drag racing, and I kind of feel bad for like letting that down, but like I had a bunch of fast cars, or like I pretty much
honestly
started the Honda,
I
like
don't understand.
I started the eBay turbo thing. Sorry,
I feel
do
like
not take that with a grain of salt, please.
I feel like drag racing, and I'm gonna ruffle some
It's
jimmies.
a pissing contest.
Well, I'm like, what is the point? You drive fast in a straight line, like
Yeah.
there's no skill.
It's the easiest thing to watch because, again, it's a pissing contest. It's all about who has more money,
Yeah.
who spends more time on their cars. And it's not always about money. I'll crap on drag racing all day long because it really is the most basic sport ever. But what's the first thing a 16-year-old does with his car? He wants to go as fast as he can
Yep.
in a straight line to see what he can do. It's just like that's our innate desire, is to race, and it's the most basic form of racing. So
Yeah.
whatever. But I don't have a passion for it. I think it's boring. I think it's a pissing contest. It's a lot of money into a car that you don't really do much with for more than 10 seconds. And so
Right?
it's fun, sure. If you want to benchmark against your friends, whatever. But like the whole, it gets different on like the NHRA level. So again, take what I'm saying, take it as a hot take, grain of salt. But anyways, I stopped doing drag. I used drag racing as my segue.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm going to give drifting one more shot because I always loved HPD, and to be honest, I'd love to get back into grip racing. I'd love to do some endurance stuff, but I was like, you know what? Drifting is right now, I think it's the most fun sport to watch.
Yeah.
From
There's style to it.
From a crowd's perspective. And the reason why I love it is because you can not only put your style into your driving, but your style is reflected through your car as well. And you can make your car look any way you want it to, and still make it drive just about as well as you need it to.
Yeah.
With a few sacrifices here and there. But I got back into drifting. Bought the S13. I did not care about views. I didn't care about YouTube. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy this car. It's for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. And so I did. I went to a couple events. The first event back, it was brutal. It was bad. Car wasn't working well, so I was like, you know what?
I was like, I can't remember what
it was.
that
Houston. It was Houston. The people who set the car up didn't hook the alternator up, so my battery was just constantly going dead. And I didn't know that because the alternator's in a weird spot on the SR.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to touch the car, period, because I was just so battle worn from touching vehicles.
Yeah.
Then I went to the Oklahoma thing.
Yep.
Oklahoma was warm. It was inviting. I loved it. So shout out to Full Lock. I love Full Lock Drift.
Yeah.
Stuckey and Thorn, like they run a great deal over there. The tracks are fun, very simple, but that kind of got me back into it. And like finally finding a purpose to constantly beat myself up working on cars was really cool for me.
Yeah.
But also
When you had a goal.
getting in and constantly driving was great. And so I bought the sim because I was like, drifting's just muscle memory.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Experience.
What
like
was always
time.
so frustrating for me is I would see people and like they'd be good drivers, but you could tell me exactly what happened and what went wrong and what needs to be different. And I'm like, you're such a good, like you have all that knowledge and skill, but for years you weren't able to utilize that.
And the first time this is the first time I've ever driven with my brain working properly.
Yeah.
I've literally never fired on all cylinders when I'm in a driver's seat until this happened. So it was fantastic. I mean, and it's been great because I have progressed quickly, and a lot of people have told me that. I'm very grateful for all the insight there, but I still have tons to learn. I think drifting is amazing because like the only thing that will get you better is time.
Yeah.
And experience. Like sim or not, you got to eventually hop into a real car. And then even if you're in a real car all the time, sim helps too.
Yeah.
But it's really, you just got to spend time. So it's been amazing. So really since then, because I've let my brain heal and allowed myself to get back into the driver's seat, I now am back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, you're going to go for Pro-Am this year?
I'm going to attempt. I really think I have a shot, at least in podium for sure.
I feel like I'm biased, but like I said, you know your stuff.
I think the whole point of competing, really, like the root of it is believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm very good, but I
really
might not have as much experience as some others, and that's just going to happen naturally because I push myself to drive as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I definitely have it in me to be on a pro level. That's just that's my innate desire to just do that. I love competing, so it's not even like I'm going to try and go pro because that's what YouTube wants me to do. It's like, no, I legitimately love competing. I want to be better. I want to challenge myself, and it's a personal journey that I'm going to take. So yeah, I'm excited for it, but that is still sort of a condensed version of everything that happened in my life with anxiety.
And there's a million stories in there as well.
It was rough. Point being, guys, if you do need help, absolutely try and get it. I mean, Amen Clinics is fantastic. It's an expensive process, I will admit.
I do think they have, if you like really need help with it, I think there's options.
Yeah, but it's worth it. So I can't thank them enough. I mean, it truly changed my life. I don't know if I would be here anymore if it wasn't for them. Like I was on the verge of giving up more and more every single day, and it was tough. So I'm very thankful for them. Super grateful for that. And, I like doctors that aren't selfish. They don't try and, push certain pharmaceuticals.
Well, and what's really cool is his whole thing is like medicine's last. They talk about supplements and changing your diet and inflammation and all kinds of stuff. He's legit. He's like, medicine is the very last resort.
I think that's it, though, for the first episode. And this is anything else you want to say?
This is so fun. No.
I'm excited. Again, I think the point is there's so much that we want to talk about that goes on in our daily lives. There's so many questions, repetitive questions that we've gotten over the years that you can't answer in an Instagram story.
Yeah.
But you really, we could expand so much. And so if you have any recommendations or if you have questions that you want us to talk about, whether it's about marriage, whether it's about our beliefs, whether it's about, finances. We love to help you guys. I mean, that's really our goal here.
Yeah.
I do this because I love people. Fame is cool. I like being well known, but I'm a hermit. I don't like being out. I don't like being, I don't need to be on the red carpet or anything. I want to be seen because I also want to help you and be heard. So, if there's Victoria's full of knowledge or wisdom because of the things that we've been through. And so us as a couple, married couple, we have plenty of insight so far. I feel like for 30 years old, we got probably more under our belts than some, but
we've been through a lot.
But yeah, we'd love to help you guys, but really, we're going to talk about some of the dramas that we've had over the years, some of the stuff a little more in depth.
Fun fact, our neighbor tried to sue us, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time.
We've never said that. But
we've never said that, but now we can.
Yeah. But thank you guys for watching. I suppose, do we have any sort of routine?
To end it? I don't know.
To do anything for ending it? I don't know. I guess if you guys want to support us, 53supply.com. We have merchandise. We're not doing giveaways anymore.
Yep.
So
no more giveaways.
Just merch. It's comfortable stuff. It's cool stuff. We spent a lot of time and effort on designing it, and we want you to wear it out in public. We want to make stuff that's not weird. So you can toss it on.
It's not weird.
I don't know.
What are you thinking about?
Like some of the stuff that automotive creators just kind of cringe, It's like
that's true.
But I mean, I've done the same thing. Anyways, thank you for watching,
hanging out with us,
and we'll see you guys.
We
next
hope you
time.
had fun because I had a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
I was going to say, this is probably the most screen time you've had in 10 years.
Oh, I don't even care about screen time. It's just I love talking with you.
No, that's cute.
so Disney.
Cute. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
It's listening, I think.
What?
Well, they're going to be listening.
Listening. Okay, whatever. There's a camera, okay?